Okay, this is the Chicago Open being played May the 25th through the 29th. I'm playing in the under 1900 section. This is round one. Okay, my opponent played the Sicilian defense. The A6 pawn is very natural on the main line, preventing the knights from moving to B5. Now he's playing the moves slightly out of order, so it took me a long time to determine whether or not I could take advantage of that. I determined I couldn't, so I continued on. Here, I really wanted to get my pawn to F4 before I placed the bishop at F3, but I was so afraid of pawn to B4 that I went ahead and did it right away. I felt that the bishop was slightly misplaced at C6 and would have to ultimately go back to B7. In theory, the loss of a tempo. Now I really believe that pushing my pawn to E5 was too early in the game, that it could be threatened, especially with knight to E7, then to G6. Because he played D5 right away, I felt that I had a strong square at D4 and was going to occupy it right away. Sometimes you don't want to occupy it right away. You want to make sure that the black bishop is off the board so that he cannot exchange his black bishop for your strong knight. I didn't wait. I'm trying to give more support to D4. This was the whole idea of moving the bishop to H5, was so that when he did attack the E5 square, I'll be able to cover it with F4. At this point, the computer is giving me a slight advantage due to his weakened pawn structure, isolated pawn at D5, and double pawns on the F file. The move king to H1 was probably a little early. I could have done more preparing. Okay, this was really important. I had to figure out how to leave my knight posted at E5 once the exchange happened with the F6 E5 pawn, and fortunately I was able to figure it out. Now my knight is posted and there's no adjacent pawns to push him out of the way. But black does still have his dark squared bishop. I should have taken it off the first chance I got. Now it's too late. He can exchange off that knight, but I think my bishop would be just as good at D5. So that's the main reason I didn't worry about his dark squared bishop. And he's giving me another chance to take it off with my bishop, and I should have taken advantage of it. And now I'm going into the end game. Of course, I was under time trouble, so I went into the end game thinking that the position of that knight at E5 would be strong enough to win. He's advancing his kingside pawns. He's advancing his queenside pawns. I'm advancing my kingside pawns. I don't want them to get too far away because the king is going to need to support them, whereas his pawns, they can easily be supported by his pieces. I'm in real time trouble here, so I had to make moves pretty quick. Now he's got my passed pawn before he was able to get a passed pawn. I went to the F file. The computer recommends the H file, thinking that the major pieces, the two rooks, could be exchanged off on that H file. It's still giving me the advantage in the endgame. Now, I didn't think that was right. The A3, I thought he should have went to B3. So if I locked up the position, his rook could penetrate on C2. Now, he actually has a little trap here that I almost fell for. The reality is I did fall for it. It just didn't work. By taking that pawn, I should have looked to see what would happen if he came down and checked. Well, I did look at that. What I didn't look at is rook to f5 check first. I didn't think it mattered, but see, now my king is actually forced away from my rook and he would go a rook up. But fortunately, I have one square that the king can attack the rook. And now it's pretty much all over. I got the king away from my pawn, so now it can queen without any interruption, especially once my king captures the rook. At this point, he resigned. So that was my win at round 1. Check out round 2. Bye for now.